branch, the White House, in today with the Supreme Court. So as you guys know, Los Angeles was functionally invaded by the Trump administration, led by a honestly, it appears to be mentally. So as you guys know, Los Angeles Patrol agent who is functionally invaded by the Trump administration, led by a honestly, which is itself unusual, but also so as you guys know, Los Angeles Patrol agent who is functionally invaded by the Trump administration, led by a honestly, which is itself many groups. So as you guys know, Los Angeles banded together to file one large case together. A lot went into that. As you guys know, Los Angeles council, individual attorneys like Stacey, real luminary civil rights litigators like Andy Live from the University of California, Irvine Law School, we all, to name just a few, banded together. We filed in federal court, civil rights litigants. Early on, in fact, remember claims filed. Various interests of the people whose rights are allegedly being violated, the interests of the government in violating those rights, or or not, and then also who might be likely to win. We early on various interests called a temporary restraining order, rights very allegedly being violated, the interests of the government in violating those rights, or or not. The courts also basically fights likely administration from engaging. We early on various interests called a temporary restraining order, rights very allegedly being violated, the interests of the government in violating those rights, profiling. Also, its Ninth Circuit likely administration early on various interests restraining order. At that point, allegedly being violated. The order of the judge and continued doing raids in violation of what the judge told them that they could and could not do. For tactical reasons, the lawyers in the case decided not to go in and seek contempt motion from the trial judge because we were before the Supreme Court. But if you're wondering, why it was for tactical reasons, the lawyers in the case decided this was unfortunately where we were, and I think arguably the Trump administration was trying to bully the Supreme Court. If you're wondering why it got, the Trump administration went to the Supreme Court and asked for that order blocking the raids to be lifted. And then yesterday, in the shadow docket Trump administration decision, 6 judges voted to lift that. We think 6 judges voted to lift the order blocking the Trump administration from engaging in these raids, either with concurrence by Justice Kavanaugh, the first people, and it was really quite pleasing. I'll talk about that in a second. There was a very the Trump administration has been given new authority that it shouldn't have to violate the U.S. Constitution. and how they, decide
the Trump administration has been given
irrigation of power. Not about the ultimate merits of the case. What the Supreme Court did was essentially it punted again on a looming constitutional crisis. And I want to pause just quickly to kind of share a little bit about that. Most court observers, what the Supreme Court did was essentially Supreme Court is at stake here. And he does a sort of defense of what they're doing. I think that they're gambling on, the Supreme Court is gambling on the bet that the public won't care. Is at stake here. Constitutional rights being trampled for people defense of what they're doing. I think that they're gambling. The upshot of all this, I think, the Supreme Court is gambling. Number one, the bet, the lie that the public won't care. Is at stake here. Constitutional rights being trampled for people defense of what they're doing. I think they on local governments and state governments.
high school. I moved back to Altadena. We were 1 block away from the fire. My office is in Pasadena. I told Chris, I told Pablo and Andelon, if they come here, I want these cases. High school, I moved back to Altadena, and Pasadena, we were 1 block away from the fire. My office is in Pasadena. I told Chris, I told encouraged you to plead guilty. That's what's going on. We've lost all neutrality in the system. I got a text right before this started that one of the head immigration judges in San Francisco was fired because of politics. The entire system now is basically working for the Trump administration. And so at some point, the system is going to completely fail. Our separation of powers are going to fail, and it's going to come down to all of us to make this change. And I don't know what else to do, but to thank you all for the solidarity, for breathing, for being here for one another. And this is the time, this is the fight of our lives. And this is the time to get up and care, to stop, just complaining, to stop feeling like, oh, this is how it is. I keep saying this, to get our kids moving, to get our kids up to doing activism, because it's going to get worse. We're all affected. Any of us are subject to these arrests now. And they're violent and they're scary. And this is not the country that we recognize, and we've got to take some steps immediately. I want to thank you all for being on this forum. Thank you all for the support. I actually have to go run over to the litigation call now on the strategy at post Supreme Court. I think I need a good cry. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Stacy, and thank you so much, Chris, for just giving us a rundown of what you know. And just so folks also know, we will be answering questions towards the end. Chris is going to stay. We might not be able to get to all of the questions, but if there are specific questions around what happened with the decision, we might be able to get to some of those at the end of the call. Just very, very quickly, just a reminder for folks who are just joining, if you have questions, please put them on the Q&A box, not on the chat. We're not monitoring the chat for questions. With that said, we now want to tell you why this is important. You just heard the what is going on. Now we want to tell you the why. Why is this so important? So for that, I want to invite Pablo Alvarado, who is one of our executive directors here at the National Day Labor Organizing Network, also a dear friend and coworker. to tell you why we're here, why we're fighting for day laborers. Pablo, take it away.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you everyone for taking the time to be with us in this moment of difficulty. I just want to share a story of this man that actually Stacy represented, and both her and I went to pick him up when he was being released. And the man was, I'm not going to share the name because I have not asked him about that. But he was picked up in one of the Home Depots. He's not a day laborer. He used to be at one. He no longer is a day laborer. He had his documents. It had a work permit. They didn't even give him a chance to show them his work permit. And as they were bringing him to the processing center in downtown Los Angeles, there were three officers, two white officers and one Latino officer. And the man turned to the Latino officer and spoke to him in Spanish. And he told him, "Aren't you ashamed of what you're doing?" And then the officer lowered his head and said, "Well, don't you have a job too?" And the response of the worker was, "I do, but mine is dignifying. I build things. I don't destroy things. I don't split families. I make the gardens green. I construct." And then he added, maybe you're not going to see, maybe you're not going to pay the price of what you're doing, but your children might. And the officer lowered again his head, and he said to him, "You're not the first one who's told me this." And to me, the way the worker tells the story, he says it in a way that basically saying, "I had my moment of power. I told him what I wanted to say in that moment." And the way that I interpret the exchange is that the worker was telling the officer, "You believe that you are dehumanizing me, but it's the other way around. You are dehumanizing yourself." And I think that this is the battle of our times, as Stacy said. It's humanization versus dehumanization. And I think that all of us who are in this call are in the right side of history. And of course, we're asking, and then I know at the end we're going to have a call to action, but we're asking to accompany people who are having it difficult right now, particularly day laborers, car wash workers, um, landscape workers, street vendors, the most humble among us. And in this moment, they need to be accompanied. They need to be accompanied not from the angle of pity, but from the angle of love and solidarity. We need to stand with this community, because it's just like the story of the worker. I've heard countless of stories at the Home Depots. I heard this worker tell him, I knew that ICE was around, and I went and I shared with him, ICE is around. And then he looked at me and said, "Well, today I brought my tennis shoes." And he knew what he was saying, but because I don't have a choice, I have to be here at work. And that's the same spirit that moved Roberto Carlos Montoya, the man who was killed during an ICE raid in Monrovia, a Guatemalan father of four and grandfather, a very courageous man. If you walk around Monrovia, the reason why the houses look beautiful and the gardens look beautiful is because of that workforce, because of his labor. So in this moment, what we're telling people, yes, we feel abandoned, but we have friends and we have each other. And people are showing up to Home Depots to bear witness of the cruelty. And to the extent, and I'm sure that you've seen some of the latest polling, where public opinion is little by little shifting in favor of immigration. You know, but to the extent that it's shifting, it's not because the Democrats have a message and they are fighting, and because there are these incredible leaders that are doing everything that they can, and because they have a very well articulated strategy. It's because of all of you, of all the people that are going to Home Depot and filming and showing this is what this administration is doing, and people are looking at those images of cruelty in their phones, and that's a I believe that we have to replicate millions and millions of times, you know, those acts of love and kindness and solidarity. We need more people, and as we go into the next phase of the enforcement, because in October they're going to get the infusion of billions and billions of dollars, and the new officers are going to hit the streets, so it's going to get a lot worse. And now with these new tools that they might have at their disposal, who knows what they're gonna be doing? But there's uncertainty in what they'll do. But I think we should be certain of what we're gonna do, and that is continue to show up, to continue to bear witness to what's happening. And I am so honored to introduce to you one of those day laborers who decided not to stay quiet and who decided to be the plaintiff in the lawsuit. In fact, the lawsuit is named Pedro Vasquez Perdomo versus Christine Nong. And here with us, we have Pedro Vasquez, who's going to share a few words with all of you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Pedro Vázquez y soy jornalero. Vine a este país buscando trabajo y seguridad, buscando una oportunidad para mantener a mi familia con honestidad y esfuerzo. Pero lo que me pasó en Pasadena en junio cambió mi vida para siempre. Simplemente estaba parado en una parada de autobús esperando para ir a trabajar, como lo hago todos los días. De repente, sin advertencia, llegaron varios autos sin identificación, varios hombres enmascarados, se bajaron, me agarraron a mí y a mis compañeros y nos llevaron como si fuéramos criminales, como si no valiéramos nada. No nos dijeron quiénes eran, no nos explicaron por qué, no nos explicaron por qué, y de repente, sin advertencia, llegaron varios autos sin identificación, varios hombres enmascarados se bajaron, me agarraron a mí y a mis compañeros y nos llevaron como si fuéramos criminales, como si no valiéramos nada. No nos dijeron quiénes eran, no nos explicaron por qué nos secuestraron, nos encadenaron y nos metieron en un cuarto pequeño con otras 52 personas, como si fuéramos criminales, solo suciedad y miedo dentro del cuarto. No nos dijeron quiénes eran, no nos explicaron por qué, nos secuestraron, nos encadenaron y nos metieron en un cuarto pequeño con otras 52 personas, sin baño, sin higiene, solo suciedad y miedo. Yo soy diabético, necesito comida y líquidos adecuados para sobrellevar mi enfermedad. pero lo que nos dieron de comer fue inhumano. Nada que una persona enferma debería recibir para su sustento. Mis niveles de azúcar se descontrolaron, desarrollé una infección en el ojo. Durante la detención pedí ayuda, pero nunca recibí atención médica. Estuve encerrado en detención por 3 semanas, 3 semanas de miedo y dolor y humillación. Me otorgaron una fianza, pero el trauma no se ha ido. No salgo de mi casa a menos que sea necesario. Tengo miedo a que simplemente por estar afuera me vuelvan a llevar. Fui blanco de esta agresión por ser latino, por ser jornalero, por ser visible. Esto no es solo sobre mí. Esto le está pasando a muchos de nosotros. Nosotros merecemos respeto, no merecemos persecución ni detención. Estoy contando mi historia porque creo en algo más grande que el miedo. Creo en las personas. Nadie debería ser arrancado de la calle como me pasó a mí. Nadie debería vivir con miedo solo por tratar de ganarse la vida con honestidad. Pero también sé esto, en tiempos como estos, cuando los jueces fallan y la crueldad se convierte en ley, es la gente, solo las personas quienes pueden protegerse entre sí. Así que ahora les hablo a todos, ya sea que uses botas para trabajar o un traje elegante, no importa si hablas inglés o español o ambos, ya sea que alguna vez hayas esperado trabajo en una esquina o simplemente hayas pasado junto a alguien que lo estaba haciendo. Esta lucha también te pertenece porque esto no se trata solo de los jornaleros, se trata de quiénes somos como país, se trata del tipo de personas que queremos ser. Tenemos que protegernos, tenemos que creer en la humanidad del otro, tenemos que volver a conectarnos entre vecindarios, idiomas, colores de piel y luchas, porque la conexión es la única forma de sobrevivir a esto. Es la única forma de ganar. Les invito desde cualquier lugar de la vida en que se encuentren a ponerse del lado de los jornaleros, de los trabajadores, de quienes este gobierno intenta borrar. Les pido que nos vean, que se solidaricen, que estén con nosotros, porque solo el pueblo salva al pueblo.
Así es, muchísimas gracias por compartir, gracias por tu valentía y estamos aquí siempre, todos tenés 894 personas en esta llamada que están aquí en solidaridad contigo, Pedro. No estás solo, estamos juntos y así es, todo el pueblo salva el pueblo. Muchísimas gracias por compartir tu historia. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And just want to apologize because we forgot to share that there was interpretation. I really hope that folks saw in the chat that there was interpretation at the bottom. But thank you for staying on, for hearing Pedro's story. And now that you have heard what happened this week, you have heard why it is so important to fight back. It is so important to stay with one another, to fight for one another, to fight not for immigrants, but with immigrants. And at the end of the day, to fight for ourselves, because they're going after all of us by attacking our constitutional rights. So with that said, we're gonna talk to you about what we can do to fight back. And for that, I wanna introduce also an amazing coworker of mine, who is our other co-director of Endelon. Nadia is gonna join us to talk about 3 things big ask that we have for you. But we think that you are here because you want to do something. So we have a lot for you to do. So Nadia, please chime in.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to everybody who is on. Really, all of you are on, and we know that right now the whole country is looking at what is happening, as we should be looking at what is happening in Los Angeles. And as Pedro was saying, what's happening there affects everyone. Our constitutional rights have been badly damaged, and if that's not repaired, it's going to spread. We also know that we can't sit back and rely on the justice system. The courts aren't going to protect us. And that's why we're inviting people everywhere to rise up, to speak out, to take action, and to protect each other, protect people from unjust arrest and imprisonment. We believe that we should act quickly before the next court hearing in California. And the next court hearing in California, I believe, as we heard before, is on September 24th. And so we're inviting you all to join us on September 18th, which is not this Thursday, but next Thursday, to host somewhere, wherever you are, a rally or a vigil, or join a vigil if you find that there is one. Bring your neighbors and send that message in your area, in your neighborhood. We're going to be putting the information, the details. We have a mobilized link and all of that. We'll share it in the chat and in our follow-up email. But that's going to be a day of action nationwide. Why? Well, first, because we need to push the judges in California to stop the administration from terrorizing Black and Brown communities with their racist raids and arrests, and also to push the federal courts to change the direction that the Supreme Court has sent us into. And most importantly, we need to push we need to bring public opinion, as Pablo was mentioning, in society to our side. We need to raise our voices to say what Pedro and other people who've been affected by the raids have said, and what even the federal judges have recognized, which is this isn't law enforcement. These are brutal authoritarian assaults on people. They're random, they're racist, and they're violence against entire communities. So we have three key calls to action. One is, again, to host or attend a rally or vigil on September 18th, demanding that the courts protect the Fourth Amendment rights for immigrant workers and for everyone, for all of us. Second, if you haven't already, I know that some of you already are here because you have, but if you haven't already, adopt a day labor corner. If you haven't, join a team that has adopted a corner. Make sure that if you have already adopted a corner, that you're recording and reporting what you witness in terms of raids or racial profiling. We have a lot of information, trainings, recordings, toolkits, and all that on Adopt a Corner, and you can find out more on our website, and I think we'll put links as well. And then third, we're establishing a national hotline specifically for US citizens who have been victims of this racial profiling. And so we're asking that if you know someone, to please pass on the information about this hotline or just spread the word for this hotline. It's specifically targeting people who might be US citizens, and they can call for help and information if they're stopped or seized in what ICE is doing. It's modeled on the local hotline that the Pasadena Job Center and Endilon has had for workers in general in California. But again, this is national, and it's focused specifically to try to identify these cases, which we know are happening and will continue to happen, of citizen profiling. I just wanted to end by saying we know this is not going to end here, right? This is only the beginning. We can pressure the courts, which is what we're going to do. We can't rely on the courts, as we have seen. We can't rely on Congress or other elected officials to, to do the right thing. They have not demonstrated half of the bravery that immigrant workers are showing every single day. So we have to make sure that we stay connected and organized and standing in solidarity with each other after this action, regardless of the outcome of the court cases. And at Endilan, we say, as Pedro was just saying, solo el pueblo salva el pueblo. Only the people save the people. So I repeat that, and I'll pass it back to you, Erica.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you so much. If you haven't, please look at the chat and find the links that were shared by our team for one, if you want to host this rally or vigil. You will be receiving information after. Please sign up to host if you think you can, and we'll follow up. And also, if you want to adopt a day labor corner, there's also links on the chat. Please take a look at those. Our team is constantly sharing those links. And there are also some folks who have already adopted a corner who need help with their corner. They're trying to recruit more folks. So if you are in that area, please reach out to them. You can see a lot of them putting information on the chat of their corner that they're working to protect and be in solidarity with workers. With that said, I'm going to now open it to Q&A. If I can ask our panelists to turn on their camera, and we can put down the slide, and I'm going to just take a look at, and you can unpin me if you like, Susana. Just have our panelists. You can turn on your camera. So we have a few questions. Oh, we have a lot of questions. We're not going to get to every question. We have about 12 minutes left. But let's start here at the top, which I think it's there's a lot that we can basically answer with maybe Chris, just very specifically focus on the local. I'm going to repeat sort of the summary of the questions for our interpreters. The people are asking, what can Newsom, what can the mayor of LA do? Or, really what can leadership at the local level in LA do to fight back in this, specifically with this ruling?
Okay, thanks, Erica, and thanks, everyone, and especially thanks to Pedro Vasquez. A lot of people don't know too much about the Fourth Amendment, but they know that the Miranda rights, that we all enjoy, the right to remain silent, to get counsel that you see in TV shows, was won by an individual. And my hope and expectation is that we will eventually win in this case, and people will know and appreciate the historical contribution that Pedro Vasquez has made to defending constitutional rights that are currently being denied against him. And I just want to express gratitude for his civil rights leadership. I went through some of the questions, Erica, and categorized them. I want to just answer the first one, which I think is the most important, given that we're up against the clock. That was asked, and at least most important from my perspective. That was asked by Josh and Morgan. Does the Supreme Court ruling mean that any information we have collected on violations of the TRO don't mean anything now? And the answer to that is a resounding no. It is absolutely imperative. So much of this case has been built on and will continue to be built on the fact gathering of concerned people that are out there at these adopt a corner, adopt a car wash, adopt a location areas with their cell phones. And we need much, much more evidence, more videos. And just because some of the evidence that we have already gotten has been disregarded, and it was disregarded by the Supreme Court, doesn't mean that it won't be useful as we go back to the trial judge on September 24th and as we go forward. So I implore everyone to keep going out there and documenting the abuses, both for the four corners of litigation and, as to Pablo's point, because these are the things that will continue to move the public opinion. There's no evidence on this, but I believe that a majority of Americans are when confronted with the reality of what they're seeing opposed to it. And that relates to another question that someone asked, which is, what do we do now that the Supreme Court is failing us? And it is imperative that we have public opinion on our side. The Supreme Court rests on basically two things for its power. Number one, the police force of the federal government to enforce its decisions. And number two, its legitimacy with the American public. Obviously, we're losing on number one. The Supreme Court is giving carte blanche permission to the Trump administration to continue to take power in violation of the Constitution. But in the end, they are very aware of their standing and their legitimacy with the American public. And like I said, most people, myself included, believe that we will eventually get to a classical constitutional crisis defined as the Supreme Court, saying something and the Trump administration not complying. And then the question is, what happens? And there is no norm, experience, history, or mechanism in the US for that moment. And if we don't have public opinion on our side as a check, people in the streets, then we will be lost. And by the way, I speak a little bit from experience. Some of you know that I represent Kilmar Abrego Garcia's family. We got very close to that exact moment when the Supreme Court issued a very specific ruling calling for the administration to facilitate his Kilmar's return to the United States. Trump basically disregarded it, but eventually felt, I think, compelled by public opinion in part to bring him home. So it's imperative that we continue to win the case in the court of public opinion. A ton of you, apparently I struck a nerve by talking about the levers that are not being used by the state and local government in California. So I want to spend a couple minutes to your question, Erica, on that specifically. The fact of the matter is there are more things that the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor of California can do to mitigate the human rights violations that are occurring in the state and in the city of Los Angeles. And I will be specific with a couple of examples, but these are not in any way exhaustive. Governor Newsom, for example, could himself support legislation to provide a private right of action for people whose rights are violated by these masked terrorizing federal agents. There are ideas for legislation that have been proposed to him that would allow for individual lawsuits, even if the state government won't intercede, to provide damages actions for people who are abused by ICE. To date, the Newsom administration has ignored those recommendations. Those are just from Endelon. There are other recommendations for legislation that they could pursue. In 2017, Governor Jerry Brown with Pro Tem Senator Kevin De Leon procured $30 million and retained the Covington law firm to do major civil rights litigation. Covington was instrumental in ultimately defending DACA in the regions of California versus Trump case last time, or I don't know if it was Trump, but he could be dedicating resources. The fact is that there aren't enough civil rights litigators. The bandwidth to be able to take these cases is shrinking, as you heard from Stacy. We need more ammunition, and the state can and should provide more litigation capacity. It shouldn't be the case that small nonprofits like ours are committing the resources, and we're happy to do it, but it's not enough. And finally, and I'll just make this point very specifically, it is an absolute abdication of the governor's responsibility that he has not yet brought an investigation to fruition into the killing of Roberto Carlos Montoya. He has the purview that, as you know, he was chased to his death on a California highway, which is squarely within the jurisdiction of the Highway Patrol, which reports to Governor Newsom. And despite repeated efforts by us and by the family, there has been very limited investigation into the basic facts surrounding that killing. And that is something that, like I said, could be done first for justice for the family to the extent that there can be some, but also as something, again, that hopefully will shock the conscience of the public into joining in protest. In Los Angeles, I think there has been an even greater abdication of leadership by Mayor Bass. Very specifically, things that she can do are, number one, she can fire LA Police Chief Jim McDonnell, who is famously a Trump supporter, and even more famously to all of us who worked on SB 54. He was the chief opponent of California's sanctuary state law in 2017, working hand in glove with the Trump administration while sheriff lost his job because he opposed legislation in California which stopped more deportations than any other legislation in the country. And I'll point out that we should all make sure not to shrink from defending SB 54, which is coming under attack. One could imagine if we didn't have the law prohibiting 287G agreements, prohibiting police collaboration, one could imagine that the Supreme Court decision yesterday would be a permission slip for racist sheriffs, and we know that they're out there in California who are itching to do immigration enforcement, to engage in the same kinds of racial profiling. And thankfully, California has a sanctuary state law, which then puts the number of federal agents, even though it's increasing, smaller. Mayor Bass could do her own unique litigation rather than intervening in our case. I was with her on July 7th, the day that MacArthur Park was invaded. And one of the things I asked her was why they did not file litigation on that day. We don't know. The mayor can stand up a police force to defend protesters. This is something that Pablo asked the mayor directly yesterday in the press conference, because as anyone knows, these protests are getting very, very tricky. Unfortunately, the LAPD has come out and provided a counterproductive role when protesters are out there defending human rights. And we're, again, consistently calling on the mayor to direct, well, again, ideally find a new police chief, but find one who at least will protect the rights of protesters. Finally, we have asked for over 2 months for the mayor to convene a meeting with day labor centers and Home Depot in her office. We know from the past that the mayor of Los Angeles can easily convene such a meeting. Los Angeles day labor centers should be protected as if they were public libraries. They are public institutions created by municipal law, and yet we are not getting nearly the kind of protection of the day labor centers which are being targeted for attacks. So those are just to say a few, but there are many more things, including, for example, the final thing is District Attorney Krasner in Philadelphia has said that he intends to prosecute criminally ICE agents for the type of behavior that we, for example, saw at the Westlake Home Depot, where ICE engaged in tear gassing and abusive conduct toward civilians outside of the day labor center there. To my knowledge, there hasn't even yet been a state investigation into the bullets that were fired into the car of an innocent person who's currently in Adelanto. So yes, there are much more things that the administrations can be doing rather than just merely providing words of support. And we at Endelon for sure are going to, even if it's uncomfortable, continue to push our friends in the administration to do more than they're currently doing, which is really quite simply not enough. And maybe if there's one silver lining, again, if and when these different states get attacked, is that governors will start to compete for things to do. I don't know if there are other big questions that got asked. I know a lot of people asked about the state and local piece, so that's why I dwelled on it. But Erica, if there's any other flags that you want to raise to the top.
I think, well, there's one question here at the top of, what for cities that have been occupied, so DC, LA area, probably Chicago at this point. What has been helpful for folks outside the area, those areas, to show support and hold a line with you? I don't know if this is, what my answer would be one of the calls to action we have, which is to help us put together rallies and other events like vigils outside of courts on the 18th. Chris, I wonder if there's anything else that we should mention in terms of, this is more of a question of what people can do, but I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be said in terms of how this will affect people outside of LA. And a big reason why we want to have this call, we wanted to have this call be a national call, was because this will be something that we all have to worry about eventually.
To me, the lesson from Los Angeles is that the leadership we're seeing on the streets from average people who just get together and do their own thing is far exceeding the leadership of our elected officials. And I think that the lesson that can be learned from LA is, number one, to replicate some of the types of neighborhood defense committees that we and others like Unión del Barrio and others have been engaging in, but also to start now to create political reinforcement and to raise expectations rather than lowering them for local governments. I think DC is unique because of the fact that it's not a state. Someone put a question about the posse comitatus, which is the rule providing that the military cannot be used to police civilian populations. It's obvious that that is coming under withering assault. We saw it with the Marines and the National Guard in LA with the machine guns. It's something that we just have to continue to be out in the streets. I'm fond of quoting Mike Davis, the late great historian. But in the end, the only sword that we have and the only shield that we have for all social movements is the public square. No doubt what they're doing in the administration is trying to terrorize all of us into abandoning the public square, to grind us down, to make us feel helpless. It is imperative that we continue to defend the rights of protesters, and especially the rights of protesters who take the greatest amount of risk in doing their action. Do not fall into the trap of stigmatizing the so-called groups or the activists who are taking risks. We need to get their backs. And I think that that's another key lesson as well.
Well, we're at the top of the hour, but there's one very important question. It's kind of technical, but I think it's important for folks who are able to stay maybe just 5 more minutes. Chris, if you could just quickly explain what's happening on the 24th. And this is a reason why we're asking everybody to put together an action on the 18th to preempt what's happening in the courts on the 24th. But if you can just very quickly, I think it's already been said, but just to summarize what we're expecting for the next step on the courts.
I'm curious to hear what's happening over on the other Zoom with Stacy, where they're discussing this exact thing. The temporary restraining order is a very, very quick emergency procedure when there's a lot at stake, and you get a quick snapshot. The preliminary injunction phase is another version of the same thing. I will share one bit of hopeful news. A similar thing happened. Endelon is lead counsel in the TPS litigation for among others, Venezuelans. And we've suffered a similar setback on the stay at the Supreme Court, where we had won all of the previous cases, lost at the stay. Now, in that case, there wasn't a long decision. It was just one of those quick 2-paragraph things saying, Trump can terminate TPS while we continue to litigate. But we did go back into courts and were able to get another order and gain protections and basically freeze the de-documenting of TPS holders in that case. We'll be looking to do something similar in this case. I don't know exactly the tactical means. I don't want to create false hope on this hearing on the 24th, and there's a tendency to kind of rally at these hearings, which I think we're certainly going to do. And we just got a bad interim ruling today from the district court judge, already based on the decision from yesterday. And like I said, the power of district courts is being taken away. But we will be back essentially asking for a different way to hit the pause button on these raids using a different legal standard. Whether we will get that from the trial judge, whether it will withstand an appeal from the Supreme Court, honestly, it's less likely today than it was 2 days ago. But the name of the game in most of these cases is to basically run the clock down for as long as we can. We were successful under Trump 1 with a lot of litigation doing that, DACA, TPS. We'll try to do that again. But in the meantime, we are going to continue to rely on the community to basically excavate and create facts that then can be used in the litigation going forward. So it really is so important to get out there, to take videotape, to call the hotlines, especially if you're a U.S. a citizen. But I wouldn't put too many eggs of hope in the basket of the September 24th hearing. That said, I am confident that in the end of the day, we are going to win this case. I really am.
Yes, and the actions we are asking you to put together are honestly to target the public more than the courts, since what Chris has said, there's not a lot of faith in the courts, but we do want to make sure that we are informing and persuading the public on what's going on with what they're doing with our communities. With that, we are at the end of our call. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking around for 5 more minutes. I just want to re-emphasize our calls to action, which some of our staff members are putting it on the chat. So one, please, if you are able to put together an action, a vigil, a rally outside of the courts on the 18th before this 24th court hearing, please fill out the form. Number two, if you can adopt a corner and join us and making sure that we are doing rapid response with day laborers and supporting them as much as possible. And then number three, if you have witnessed, or if you are a U.S. citizen who has been stopped and racial profiled by ICE, please call the hotline that we have shared in the chat. There is one more announcement for people in LA. I'm gonna just very quickly open it to, I think Jose's still here. There is an event coming up, and then we'll close it after that.
Yes, thank you, Erica. Yes, we have an asamblea. If you want to get involved right here in the San Gabriel Valley in California, we have an asamblea this Saturday. I've been putting the link on the chat. So if you are able to and interested in coming, please register. It's on the chat. So yeah, it's gonna be great. We're gonna do a lot of things. So love to see everyone there.
Wait, one more thing. I know we're going, but please, I didn't get to the questions about Home Depot. Very simple to go to Kinko's. We have downloadable information. You can get these things and put them in 20 minutes on every car in a parking lot at Home Depot. There will be more calls that Endelon will be convening very soon. A couple of things I think will come to the head soon in terms of pressuring Home Depot to do more. But in the meantime, anything you can do to have a presence at Home Depot, we would be grateful at Endelon if you could do so. Thank you.
Wonderful. And the last thing is that if you do sign up to Adopt the Corner, we do have 2 trainings coming up for our Adopt the Corner teams. One is on how to do rapid response as an Adopt the Corner team. Number 2 is how to protect workers post-arrest. So if you can sign up, either just sign up to Adopt the Corner and you will receive that information through email, or you can sign up directly to those trainings. You can see some of those links in the chat from Emily and our Endelon team. With that said, we're gonna close this. Thank you all so much. We had more than 800 people in this call, which really is just, despite everything that is happening, I share the constant feeling of despair sometimes, sometimes anger. But honestly, having 800 people on this call, more than 800 people on this call, just gives me so much more faith of what we can do together. That people are paying attention, that people are with us, people are with our immigrant community, we are with each other. And I just want to really say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And Pablo, do you want to do a cierre magistral or anything else that you want to say? And then we're going to close it down.
Solo el pueblo.
Salva el pueblo.
Salva al pueblo.
That's right. Thank you all. Abrazos a todos. Gracias por estar acá. Gracias a todos.
Que mayo con una. ¿Por qué? Machín. Enchilada. No sea culero. Vamos a comer una. ¿Qué iba a decir? ¿Por qué no puedo echar una cervecita?
The recording has stopped.